Welcome to a fascinating deep dive into a unique corner of religious history. Today, we're venturing into the world of scripture and shadows, Christianity's hidden canon.
That's right, a podcast that really digs into those foundational, sometimes forgotten, even forbidden Christian texts.
And our focus today is episode 7 of their series, The Queen of Sheba, Secrets of Ethiopia's Divine Dynasty.
It's a really compelling topic. We'll be looking mainly at sources discussed in Budge's work on the Queen of Sheba, especially the Kebra Nagast.
Right, the Kebra Nagast. That's the glory of kings, isn't it?
Exactly. And these sources give us a very distinct, specifically Ethiopian view on the Queen of Sheba story. It goes way beyond the versions most people know.
Okay, so let's set our mission for this deep dive. We want to unpack the main stories about the queen in these texts, understand why they matter so much in Ethiopia. Right?
Precisely. And uncover some, well, surprising connections and interpretations. The Kebra Nagast is absolutely central here. It's considered a pillar of Ethiopian identity.
And it's old. So Nunberg dated a copy back to the 13th century, maybe earlier.
That's correct. And it makes this huge claim that for something like 2,000 years, Ethiopian religion, their laws, their customs, they were essentially Hebrew.
From around Solomon's time, 10th century BC, right up to the 10th century AD.
That's the assertion, a really vast time frame, suggesting this deep, continuous link back to the Israelite kings.
That's a massive claim. How does the Kebra Nagast try to back that up? I imagine historians might question parts of that.
Well, yes. Budge himself points out some issues. Fantastic legends, maybe some, let's say, creative history and philology. The author tries to trace Semitic origins for all sorts of kingdoms, Moabites, Philistines, Egyptians, Persians.
So a broad attempt to connect Ethiopia to that ancient Semitic world.
Definitely. The intent to forge that link is clear, even if the methods are debated. But it's not just about history and customs.
But it dives into theology, too.
Absolutely. It interprets Old Testament prophecies as pointing towards Jesus Christ, the Messiah. And there's a lot of focus on the Virgin Mary. She's symbolically linked to the tabernacle of the covenant Zion. It weaves this Ethiopian narrative tightly into core Christian beliefs about salvation and Mary's role.
Okay, so that sets the stage, this connection, this claim of shared heritage.
Yeah.
How does the text then explain the transfer of David's royal line away from Israel and to Ethiopia? That's a major shift.
It is. The Arabic text Budge gives a quite unique explanation. It starts with Solomon building the temple.
A huge undertaking.
And they hit a snag. The stones were too large, too difficult to cut.
Right.
So a miracle happens. Solomon commands this mythical bird, the ruck.
The ruck bird, like from Sinbad.
Similar idea, perhaps. This ruck flies to paradise, eastern Eden, and fetches a special piece of wood.
Okay.
And this wood from paradise has the power to split the massive stones instantly. It shows divine favor on the temple project.
A sign of God's blessing on the construction. But how does that link to Ethiopia?
Well, the text frames it as God willing the transfer of the kingdom. It was this divine will that then inspired the Queen of Abyssinia, Ethiopia, to visit Solomon.
To hear his wisdom, like in the Bible, Matthew's gospel mentions the Queen of the South.
Exactly. It directly references that. So her visit isn't just curiosity. It's part of a divine plan unfolding.
And the text adds some unusual details about the queen herself.
It does. There's this detail about her birth, one human foot, one goat's foot.
Yeah.
Apparently this made her hesitant to marry.
Interesting detail.
And her visit, her destiny, is tied into God's promise to David that his line would rule forever. The narrative suggests the kingdom was rent from the children of Israel because they'd strayed from the covenant, didn't believe in the Messiah.
So the transfer is presented almost as a consequence of Israel's unfaithfulness, paving the way for Ethiopia.
That's the implication, yes.
Yeah.
It positions Ethiopia as the rightful inheritor of that Davidic promise.
Let's get into that famous meeting then. Solomon and the queen, Makeda, as she's called here, Solomon knew about her foot.
Apparently so. And he devised a trick, essentially. He flooded part of the temple courtyard with water, covering it with glass, so she'd have to lift her skirts to cross, revealing her feet.
A bit of cunning there.
Indeed. So they meet, and there's this exchange of oaths. They promise not to take anything from each other.
A mutual agreement.
But Solomon serves her spicy food. She gets incredibly thirsty during the night, and finding water by his bedside, she drinks it, breaking her oath.
Ah, so that's the justification for...
So their intimacy, yes. The text also points out she was a virgin queen, already ruling for 6 years. She wasn't just some minor figure, she was a powerful monarch in her own right.
And Solomon has a dream after this.
A very significant one. He sees the sun, representing God's glory perhaps, leaving Israel and moving to shine permanently over Ethiopia.
A clear symbol of the shift in divine favor.
Unmistakable. Then when she leaves, he gives her incredible gifts, these magical wagons for land, sea, even air travel, and crucially, a ring.
A ring as a token.
Yes, a sign. And possibly proof, should she bear his child, which of course she does.
9 months and 5 days later, she gives birth to Menyelek,
meaning son of the wise man, Ibn Hakim in Arabic.
And he grows up curious about his father.
Naturally. At 12, he starts asking questions. By 22, he's ready to travel to Jerusalem to meet Solomon. He goes with Tamreen, the queen's chief merchant, who we heard about earlier.
And the queen sends a message with him.
She does. A letter saying Ethiopia should now be ruled by a king, Solomon's line, not a queen, and that her people will adopt Israel's religion. She asks for a piece of the fringe from the covering of Zion, the tabernacle.
And she gives him the ring.
The ring Solomon gave her. As proof. When Menyelek gets near Jerusalem, maybe in Gaza, people are just stunned by how much he looks like Solomon.
The resemblance is undeniable.
It acts like a passport, almost. When he finally stands before Solomon, the king knows immediately. He's overjoyed and actually places David's crown on his head,
acknowledging him fully
and designating him effectively as the inheritor of David's line for Ethiopia.
Okay, this is where it gets really extraordinary. The tabernacle of the covenant, the ark. How does it end up in Ethiopia according to this narrative?
Well, the text emphasizes how revered the tabernacle, or Zion, was in Solomon's temple. It even mentions this miracle it would lift itself up during prayers.
A sign of God's presence.
Exactly. Menyelek sees this, feels its power, and becomes determined. He has to take it back to Ethiopia.
I imagine Solomon wasn't keen on that idea.
Not at all. He refuses, explains its sacredness, how only priests can handle it, how it protects Israel. But Menyelek insists. It's the only thing he wants.
So what happens? A direct confrontation?
No, something more. Clandestine. A secret plan is hatched with some of the Israelite elders and a priest named Azarias. They decide to make a perfect replica.
A substitute. So they didn't technically steal the original by force?
The narrative suggests a switch. Azarias, guided by an angel, according to some accounts, manages to take the real tabernacle. Menyelek leaves Jerusalem with it, accompanied by the firstborn sons of many Israelite nobles.
Wow. And no one notices immediately?
Not until later. When the priests realize the true Zion is gone, they're distraught. They try to pursue Menyelek and his companions.
But they can't catch them.
No chance. They learn the group is traveling at impossible speed. A journey that should take 40 days, they cover in just 1 day.
Another miracle.
Underlining that this isn't just human action, it's divinely sanctioned. Menyelek arrives safely back in Ethiopia. His mother, Makeda, abdicates the throne.
And he becomes king.
He's crowned King David II. The text declares the kingdom of Abyssinia now belongs to David's throne forever, and crucially, that Zion, the tabernacle, remains there.
And this links forward to Christianity in Ethiopia.
Explicitly. It connects this Davidic, Solomonic lineage and the presence of Zion to the later arrival of Christianity, the Orthodox faith, even tracing their patriarch back to Mark the Evangelist. It creates this incredibly strong, unique sense of historical and divine legitimacy.
The significance given to Zion, the tabernacle, in the Kebra Nagast is just immense, isn't it?
It's staggering. It's presented as the very first thing God created. Before the angels, before the heavens, Zion existed first.
Predating all of creation. That elevates it beyond measure.
It does. It quotes the 318 Orthodox Fathers from the Council of Nicaea, saying Zion is the dwelling place of God's glory, and it embodies the plan for God's covenant, his intention to take on human flesh, the flesh of Adam.
There's that connection to Mary again.
Yes, a powerful analogy. The heavenly Zion is seen as a mirror image, a similitude of Mary. Just as Zion contained the Ten Commandments, the law, Mary contained the Creator himself.
That's a profound theological link.
It underlines the reverence Zion commanded. And interestingly, there's a mention of Domitius, an archbishop of Constantinople, Rome, finding a manuscript.
What did it say?
It apparently stated that the world belonged to two emperors, the Emperor of Rome and the Emperor of Ethiopia. Both descended from Shem, Abraham, David, Solomon. But crucially,
yes,
it named the Emperor of Ethiopia as Solomon's firstborn son. That gives incredible weight to the Ethiopian claim within that worldview.
Beyond the tabernacle and lineage, the texts also emphasize the queen's own qualities.
Absolutely. Her wisdom is renowned. The Quran talks about her interactions with Solomon, his special knowledge, like understanding birds.
And the Gospels call her the Queen of the South.
From Ethiopia, specifically, who came from the ends of the earth. Her journey was famous. She's described as beautiful, intelligent, incredibly wealthy, gold, silver, camels, slaves. A major ruler.
And her chief merchant, Tamrin.
He's also portrayed as very wise, impressed by Solomon's wisdom and justice. It also notes the queen originally worshipped the sun.
But she converted.
Yes, through her encounter with Solomon and his God, she and her kingdom adopted the Israelite faith, according to this tradition.
Which fits the narrative of Ethiopia receiving the true faith. Solomon's vision of the sun moving also reinforces this, right?
Exactly. That vision of the sun leaving Israel for Ethiopia is seen as prophecy. And the ring he gives her isn't just a keepsake. It's a signifier of that future connection, the son who will carry the lineage.
So David II, their son, comes back with the tabernacle and establishes this new order.
He does. He's anointed king, takes his grandfather David's name. Zadok the priest is there, instructing him in God's laws, the 10 Commandments, the blessings and curses from Hebrew tradition.
So a formal establishment of the law.
And a new government structure with high officials. Then the Queen Makeda makes her nobles swear an oath.
What oath?
That from now on, only male descendants of David, through Solomon and Menyelek, will rule Ethiopia. Never women.
A permanent shift in their succession rules, secured by the queen herself.
It seems so. The kingdom is effectively renewed. Idols are cast aside, people worship the Creator, embrace righteousness, all with Zion now physically present at the center of their nation.
And that journey of Zion, the tabernacle, it deserves a bit more focus. The speed was key.
Absolutely miraculous. An angel is said to have helped Azarias. The wagons they used moved like ships on the wind or eagles soaring.
Effortless, supernatural speed.
They reached the border of Egypt in just one day. A journey that normally took, 13 days on foot?
Incredible.
Even the Israelite nobles traveling with them confess, this isn't our strength, this is God's will. They recognize Zion as their protector, their salvation, their lady. Their perspective shifts entirely during this journey.
Meanwhile, back in Jerusalem, Solomon finds out. How does he react?
He's heartbroken, deeply grieved, lamenting the loss of Zion. It's a moment of real sorrow described in the text.
But he finds some comfort.
Yes. The spirit of prophecy comes to him, assuring him it's okay. Zion wasn't stolen in a profane way. It was given to his firstborn son, a descendant of David, exactly as prophecy foretold. It's part of a divine plan, even if it's painful for Solomon.
So the ultimate legacy here is this deeply ingrained Ethiopian belief.
It's foundational. The king of Ethiopia is the king of Zion. They hold the firstborn lineage from Shem. God's presence, his habitation, is with them in Zion.
And it connects right through to their Christian identity.
Yes. Touches on links to the wood of the cross, the lineage to Christ. It all culminates in this strong affirmation of their Orthodox faith, seen as a continuation of this ancient divine mandate.
So let's try to wrap up this deep dive into scripture and shadows. We've really journeyed through a unique narrative, haven't we?
Definitely. The Ethiopian tradition of the Queen of Sheba, powered by the Kebra Nagast, is quite distinct.
We've seen the core claims, the Davidic lineage of Ethiopian kings, that direct line from Solomon, and, of course, the belief that the Ark of the Covenant Zion rests in Ethiopia.
And those surprising elements really stand out. The miraculous way the tabernacle was transferred, those very specific lineage claims that rewrite succession, and how biblical stories are woven into Ethiopian history.
It's fascinating how these narratives have profoundly shaped a nation's identity and faith well over a millennium.
It really makes you think about how foundational stories get interpreted, how they take root differently across cultures.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, the listener. How do interpretations of core religious narratives evolve? Think about the power they have to shape identity, belief, history, sometimes for thousands of years, in ways the original authors might never have imagined. What other hidden canons like this might be out there holding equally rich stories?
It certainly invites more exploration. Digging into the Kebra Nagast itself, or the broader history of Christianity in Ethiopia, is incredibly rewarding.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Scripture and Shadows. You can find more from them and about our future deep dives wherever you get your podcasts.